All right, Joseph, thank you so much for joining us. Could you just introduce yourself and tell us where you're coming from?
I'm Joseph Rosevere. I'm the head of school at the International School of Kigali in Kigali, Rwanda.
Thank you so much. And thanks for being part of this project.
My pleasure.
We are going to talk about governance and finance today. And we'll start with governance. If you could just tell us, describe your current role and functioning of your school board in Kigali.
We're a parent-owned school, so the board is a hybrid board. You've got some members who are appointed, including an U.S. Embassy appointee. So we're a state-assisted school, uh, and then others who are elected each year. The the board who is here that I've inherited, there's 9 members on it. Of those 9 members for this particular school year, 3 of them are carryovers from the year prior. And of those 3, 1 was there, 2 were there the year prior to that. So like there's a very small amount. There's a high degree of turnover within the board that's there. And I think it's somewhat unique to our school, but the board is dealing with a loss of, because of a lot of transitions in the past, they're dealing with having to kind of reinvent themselves. There are many policies, many structures, many processes in terms of how a board functions that have been completely lost. And so a lot of the work since I've been hired has been helping the board establish who they are, what they should be doing, and wrap their heads around that.
Okay. And are you doing that? Have you hired someone to help you do that outside? Or are you trying to just guide them?
Yes, yes. The answer is yes. There's a lot of my helping, but I'm a fairly new head, as I think what happens a lot of times in small schools, and so I'm not walking in with years of like personal expertise there. And then also, I think it always helps to have this outside expert come in. So I have hired somebody as a consultant to work with me and help me kind of thought partner things through, as well as working with the board and give them kind of their own retreat, give them some time and space, and then give them a lot of resources and support in identifying what they need to do.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then how do you, with all the transition, how have you onboarded and trained board members just to try to stay in alignment with your mission and strategy?
I It's been from the ground up because of so much turnover. What I sorted out was I knew when the elections were for the board members, and we set a board retreat, board training 2 weeks after that. And that was for the entire board because there was so much transition. Then it was about kind of centering what the purpose was. How should a governance body function in a school, and what's their relationship with me? So we were all part of that process with that outside consultant. Very effective. It really worked in that there was a shared commitment to the direction that we were taking. But we're now just about a month into the next school year. The board training took place right at the very end of the last school year. So we're, right now it's a lot of work for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You talked just about how a lot of times small school heads, maybe new heads, thinking about that, like you coming into this position in a small school, what do you wish you had? Like when you think about your time and the things that have taken your time, um, this was not a question I planned for, but I think it's a question that's really relevant to what you said because it's true. There's so many times, like many of the people I'm speaking to, it's their first headship. So yeah, what do you wish you had to be in this guide? That's why I'm asking.
I don't know how you replicate it in the guide, quite frankly. The biggest resource for me has been the consultant I've contracted with. No amount of reading and all of that, it's still anything where I have to go and look things up, figure things out, or access what I know as training and then put things in place. It still leaves me on an island because I
Mhm.
don't really have a team of, in my case, a really experienced, highly professional people in their roles. There's a lot of training and figuring out who I'm working with, what their skill sets are, helping them figure out what they should do in a school, all of that sort of thing. And time is a huge constraint. So having somebody who has expertise who you can then have a conversation with, and then they can say, okay, so let me give you this advice, and then I'll also send you this document. This is what I suggest you do, given what we've talked about and where you're trying to go. And just being able to talk that through oftentimes kind of relieves that kind of stress of, is this the right path or not? No matter what you're looking at on paper, it's that mentorship relationship, or just a thought partner, or just somebody who you can just have those conversations with, who has the time and has the expertise and has some of the resources to be able to connect you and support you in ways that you would never be able to without them.
This is really important, actually, and something that hasn't come up in another conversation, but the island, this idea of that being on the island. A lot of times you don't have a deputy head, maybe not even really principals at some schools, so you're the single handedly trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we've got the ACE, the small schools group, but all of those are small school heads too. So it's not that you can hop on calls with them. So this idea of having a consultant as kind of a coach, mentor, thought partner is really valuable. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
you're welcome. Yeah, it was, my situation's unique, but everybody's is. But the day I arrived mid-school year for this position was the day my single principal went on maternity leave. So, you keep learning quite a few different things as you go. Definitely in an island.
Trial by fire. Yes. Okay. I'm going to pivot just to talk a little bit about finances. Are there any financial management practices that you would really advocate for that have proven essential or effective in your experience?
I'm still building that plane here. The school was not in a great place when I arrived for a host different reasons. The structures of finances were not in, like, there were some practices that don't align with what I know. And then beyond that, we had a year with an incredible disruption to the community and a loss of a significant number of our students. Nothing to do with the school, just world events. So all of that basically being said, like reconstructing or building all of that, establishing budget processes, how you budget, what resources you need, how do you build those into everything. Like, there's a huge amount there that without people on staff who really get it and have those systems in place, it's really difficult. So what resources? Well, I think some expertise that you can access, some people who can spend time, some models of like what, a template for a school budget that you can then manipulate and make your own useful. I mean, there's templates out there, but it'd be great to have one that's really geared towards a small school in Africa. Like, there's just uniquenesses that it would be great to have some things that are kind of tailored to that. And then, there's the other bits of it all. The long-term financial planning, the questions to ask when you're working with a bank on a bank loan. Like, what kinds of lines of inquiry should you be pursuing to do that? Structures and processes for fundraising, for, things like that. All would be helpful, of course. But I think some of this it still comes down to, in the end, you have to build expertise on your staff. There needs to be some models for those people to look at. Right now in the process of trying to reach out to other business managers, other people who run finances in other schools to share some expertise with staff who's here, because they don't know other environments. They don't know other school environments. So they only have their own model to work from, and that limits awareness of blind spots.
Yeah, so like we have like having the small school heads group, if you had a small school finance manager group potentially,
Yeah,
that could
but
be
I
helpful.
think more than that, because ACEs, they've worked at that for a long time. They've had these different groups and all of that sort of
The
thing. But
affinity group.
I think there's often a barrier to kind of reaching out, and then people responding, and how you broker those conversations is
Yes.
difficult, particularly when people are busy. How do you broker that? So I think setting up some sort of a structure where you have people who are already have offered their expertise, and they're willing and capable of spending a little bit of time connecting with people and giving them sharing expertise. Like, they signed up somewhere and saying, yeah,
Yeah.
call me. And maybe there's some sort of incentive that they receive from ASA or whatever to serve as a mentor designee or as a resource for other schools to connect with. That sort of a process or system resource bank would be incredibly helpful, I think, to schools.
Essentially, where your finance manager or director can be part, so they're part of a business manager group, but then they say, "Okay, I need someone just to think through all this with, to get some ideas from." Like, the whole thing, like what you're talking about for a head, a thought partner,
Yeah.
potentially a coach, but also someone with resources and ideas of how these things can work that you can just have a call with, once
Yes.
a week or a couple weeks. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, last question, just real quick. Can you talk to us about how you're approaching your budgeting cycle? Like, what stakeholders are
Um,
involved? What does that look like? Just
I
briefly.
invested I invested this last spring in a course that Alan Knobloch led.
Yes.
Really worked through Aish um, to sign up for this course, and in all of that, he describes a process that I'm just kind of latching onto because I did that along with my business manager, my principal, so that like there's a common understanding. So that frames it for me. So I'm using that process of kind of building a budget book is his term for it with a number of the different kind of resource documents, data points, things like that that would go into the process of actually leading, having a firm foundation for what you're deciding tuition fees and things like that. So we're building that particular plane and reaching out for data points and getting all of this kind of pulled together. So leading then the finance committee through that process, we'll put the things together, we'll present that to them, let them kind of ask a few questions and then make decisions, but make sure that they have the data to make the decisions. And that's the basic process, and then just lining it out.
Okay. Oh, that's a good resource too, though. That's through Aish with Alan, the
Yeah,
course?
and it's a quite an affordable online course, and Alan's very generous with his time in terms of being able to reach out to him. Really lovely and very, very
Is.
knowledgeable, particularly in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he really is such a wonderful person.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you so
Yep.
much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us.